Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, all my YouTubians. What's going on? I hope everybody's day has started in a great way. I hope you are headed to doing wonderful things today, productive things. Hope you're going as you go to work, as you go to school or wherever you're going, that you're getting things done, you're getting things accomplished because time is short. You know what I mean? Time is not on our side. Time is one thing that you can lose and not get back. So I hope everybody's using their time extremely wisely. Now, like I told you, I will be presenting The Assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King out of one of my most favorite books in the world, FBI War and Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders. So as a Black leader, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was one. Now, this is going to be probably like a three-part, maybe for sure two-part, but it might be a three-part because it's a very long chapter. There's going to be some things I'm going to add to what I'm going to read to you, and there's going to be some comments I'm going to make just to kind of make things clear, just so you can understand where this is headed. I'm starting with this chapter. I'm starting with this, and it's going somewhere. Because eventually I'll be leading to, like I told you in the short, the condition of where Black people are right now. Our condition, right? It started with the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. That's where it started. That's where people haven't. Well, there's been some people make that connection, but I've noticed and I've made that connection that before Dr. Martin Luther King, we acted different. We dressed different. We presented ourselves extremely different. After Dr. Martin Luther King died, it was all downhill from there. Okay, the image of the Black man was hijacked, right? And it was in the hands, and it still is in the hands of people who hate us. So this starts with the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. So I'm headed somewhere with this. So if you stick along for the ride, you're gonna be blessed with information. You'll get a proper understanding of our situation, or how we go through life, or how we are mishandled and mistreated in this country, where I believe we've been this entire time. I don't think we came over here, all of us came over here on boats. I don't think that. I think that we've been here this entire time. I think that we've been conquered by so many nations that, this is just where we are. This is the product of a lot of resources used to destroy us. We're enemy number one. So, and one thing I want to get clear, I'm not against any other nationalities, but I think that as a Black man, I have a duty of informing others who look like me, attaining you, giving you the information that you need, right, to come up against when it comes racism, or be able to talk about, why we are in the situation we're in, and be able to go into those conversations and have something to say, know what you're talking about and mean it. So that's why I'm doing this. But we're going to start on this chapter. The 1968 U.S. intelligence assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Now, I'm going to read something. I believe it's like a poem or excerpt of something that Dr. Martin Luther King has written, or maybe a speech that he gave. Human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. You know what I'm talking about. And it comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals. Many say the Negro must lift himself by his own bootstraps. And you hear that all the time. That's what people tell you. They never stop to realize that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. They don't realize that the nation made the Black man's color a stigma. 2/3 of the people of the world go to bed hungry, while America spends millions of dollars a day to store surplus food. And maybe we spend far too much of our national budget establishing military bases around the world, rather than basis of genuine concern and understanding. I am convinced that the Vietnam War is one of the most unjust wars that has ever been fought in the history of the world. It has strengthened the military-industrial complex. Every time we kill one, we spend about $500,000, while we spend only $53 a year for every poor person. And we force young black men and young white men to fight and kill in brutal solidarity. We are coming to Washington in a poor people's campaign. Martin Luther King Jr., 1968, excerpt, remaining awake through a great revolution. Now, this is one of the many great reasons why he was assassinated. And you'll see there, like I said, on my short, when I hear people say I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, as black people, we are outside of that realm, okay? The best thing we could do is create like Martin Luther King did, create a poor people's campaign and come to Washington for not only civil rights, but human rights for black people. But let me continue with this chapter. While formerly on the other end of the spectrum regarding civil rights struggle tactics, Martin Luther King had moved closer to the Black Panthers' perspective by 1968. Martin Luther King Jr. won a Nobel Peace Prize in 1964 after close to a decade of nonviolent civil rights organizing. Martin Luther King, hereafter King or MLK, helped spearhead many marches and rallies to end segregation and gain voting rights that were denied to so many poor blacks in the American South. The civil rights work involved marches that led to many arrests and beatings by the local police. CIA documents and FBI agents reveal how U.S. intelligence stated that their goal was to destroy the increasingly radical Martin Luther King. They had made MLK their #1 black activist target. Historians have debated what most helped to get national civil rights legislation passed during King's life. Top sociologists Piven and Cloward effectively argued that riots contributed the most to the passage of national civil rights law. Mainstream history texts rarely cover the vast violence by racist whites that spurred riotous reactions by black communities. For example, in 1963, a gunman killed Medgar Evers, secretary of the Mississippi NAACP. Also in Mississippi that year, police and Ku Klux Klan killed 1 black and 2 Jewish and SNCC activists. Now that's what the movie Mississippi Burning is based on. If you ever seen Mississippi Burning, it is based on those murders that I just said. The accumulation of these murders helped spark riots in the black areas. Militantly racist whites also used other means of violence against blacks. Between June and October of 1964, 24 black churches were bombed in Mississippi alone. Partly in response to these events, Americans held 1,412 separate demonstrations in 1963, according to the U.S. Justice Department. Researchers documented a nationwide series of riots after police brutalized black leaders at some of the peaceful demonstrations. Sound familiar? The largest of the riots were in New York, Chicago, Maryland, Philadelphia, and New Jersey in the first half of 1964. Whether responding to riots or sincere about civil rights, President John F. Kennedy initiated the Civil Rights Act just before his assassination in November of 1963. Congress passed the act, and President Johnson signed it in July of 1964. Despite police continually arresting and badly beating him, MLK called for nonviolent civil disobedience. But King also defended rioters' actions and saying, "A riot is the language of the unheard." Blacks rioted in a particularly large number of cities in the summer of 1967. U.S. intelligence interviewed 500 jailed blacks in the largest of those riots, a violent outburst in Detroit. When U.S. intelligence asked the rioters who most inspired them, intelligence analysts stated their surprise that most responded with MLK, rather than younger SNCC firebrands such as Stokely Carmichael and H. Rap Brown. Now, Stokely Carmichael and H. Rap Brown are 2 prominent names when it comes to the black liberation. But what it's stating here is that MLK was nonviolent, but at the same time, at this time, headed towards his assassination, more people were being influenced by Martin Luther King, but the influence was not necessarily violence, but fighting back, not necessarily turning your cheek, but actually doing something about it, right? Making an action towards a liberation. Several decades after King's April 1968 assassination, His widow, Coretta Scott King, and most of the King's adult children hired attorney William Pepper to represent them. Pepper aided them in filing a civil lawsuit against Memphis rooming house owner Lloyd Jowers and his government co-conspirators in MLK's assassination. They filed this lawsuit mostly due to a 20-year investigation that Pepper, a former friend of MLK, had undertaken into the real perpetrators of King's assassination. They always want to give you that lone gunman thing, but Martin Luther King's assassination was so organized, right? It was so concise that this took more than one person. William Pepper worked as a journalist in Vietnam, an experience that led to anti-war activism beside Martin Luther King Jr. Pepper then went to law school, and after Martin Luther King's death had accepted the official version of the assassination. In 1977, MLK's closest civil rights associate, Reverend Ralph Abernathy, asked Pepper to represent long-believed sole assassin James Earl Ray. Now, check this out. This man is going to represent the person that's supposed to have been shot Martin Luther King. He's doing this for a reason. Who was serving a life sentence for allegedly shooting King from the third-floor bathroom of Lloyd Jowers' rooming house. Ray hoped that his case would be reassessed, and Abernathy believed that Pepper would help find out who really orchestrated the assassination. So he's doing this not because he wants to actually really help. That's not the primary goal. The primary goal is to get the information out there on who really assassinated Dr. Martin Luther King. Pepper took the case and first published a book on his MLK assassination investigation in 1995, titling it Orders to Kill. Warner Books then bought the rights to Orders to Kill and published it in 1998. Orders to Kill detailed the U.S. intelligence documents, government whistleblowers, and other evidence supporting that the U.S. intelligence assassinated Martin Luther King. In the introduction to Orders to Kill 1998 edition, MLK's son, Dexter Scott King, said that U.S. intelligence orchestrated the assassination of his father in 1968 for several reasons. Their top motive was to stop Martin Luther King's civil rights work in anti-Vietnam War organizing. They also wanted to halt MLK's mobilization of an interracial poor people's coalition that planned to camp in front of the White House to redirect money from the war to the poor, and to decrease King's influence over the 1968 presidential election. Pepper and others found governmental documented evidence that a dozen government intelligence agencies, a dozen, let me read this again, a dozen government intelligence agencies coordinated their plotting against King before his death. Many witnesses and much evidence supported how they worked with police and contracted the mafia to aid the fatal shooting of Martin Luther King in Memphis. People have to understand, they got this idea that the mafia is anti-government. The mafia is very pro-government. You need to understand this, okay? Because you watch videos, you watch news reports that says that, you know, the U.S. intelligence of the government is against the mafia. They're not. They go hand in hand. There's often a liaison between the police, the FBI, the CIA, and the mafia. They work hand in hand. It's like the left hand and the right hand. On April 4th, 1968, a gunman fatally shot Martin Luther King. And on April 4th, 1968, a gunman fatally shot Martin Luther King. He had just come out of his Memphis hotel room and onto the third-floor balcony that faced the back, bushy area of Lloyd Jowers' rooming house, whose ground was at about MLK's room level. Pepper published photos of an incident of an identified CIA agent lowering himself to the street from the wall extended down from that rooming house backyard within minutes of the assassination. The government claimed James Earl Ray shot from the rooming house bathroom window. A photo's confirmation helped lead undercover black military intelligence agent Morrell McCullough to admit that he raced to Martin Luther King seconds after his shooting. McCullough was the first to kneel over King, checking him for life signs and reporting his death. So he wasn't leaning over him to help him, he was leaning over him to confirm the kill. A former Naval Intelligence agent turned reporter aided Pepper by interviewing two Special Forces Group, SFG, aka Green Beret snipers, hiding out in separate Latin American countries by that 1980s time period. The two independently corroborated each other's information that they were stationed atop Memphis, Illinois Central Railroad building. Other snipers were reportedly located in two different positions, including J.D. Hill, who said he was perched on a water tower with his rifle sight on King. Okay, government snipers. Okay, they had one sniper, but they also had other snipers located around the area to make sure that if the first shot didn't get him, the second, the third, the fourth shot would. Let me make sure. Okay. Other snipers were reportedly located in two different positions. Okay, I read that. They all said they were to keep MLK and his associate, Andrew Young, in their rifle sights as they waited for a signal to shoot. One of the three SFG snipers provided a copy of his Army Intelligence Orders paper that day, which Pepper included in his book. It provided naval intelligence aid and top Pentagon command knowledge of the operation. Pepper verified its shorthand through others that worked in the Pentagon. Pepper said that these Special Forces Group's officers had been active in the 5th SFG conducting cross-border covert operations in Vietnam from 1965 to 1966. Throughout 1967, the U.S. Strike Command, with Army intelligence, the CIA, and FBI members responded to the urban riots. Sink Strike deployed these SFG snipers in their 902nd Division to do covert operations as part of a small Alpha team units in cities where riots erupted. So, in the same cities where riots erupted, these same snipers were going to those cities to quell what was going on. Their bosses gave them photographs of black militants and community leaders that were to be killed and if an opportunity rose in the course of the riot. So they used the riots as an opportunity to go to other cities and kill other militant blacks that headed other organizations. Okay, I'm gonna stop right here and I'm gonna make a part two. This is where my part two is gonna start tomorrow. Okay, so it's like I said, it's a lot of information, there's a lot of things to unpack. If you need to read or start this video over again and go back to certain parts, please do. I'm sorry, my reading isn't the best, but I try to get this information out as quick as possible. So this is where this starts. People don't understand how many intelligence agencies have their hands in the destruction of any militant black. Definitely Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all of these revolutionary nationalists were in the scopes of a lot of intelligence agencies. They wanted them dead. They all collaborated. They used the mafia, they used intelligence agencies, they used propagandists, they used informants, right, to defame a lot of our black militant leaders and eventually kill them. Same thing happened to Huey Newton. He's in here too. So I hope you guys enjoy this information. Like I said, this is going to lead us into what I eventually want to talk about. Okay, so I hope everybody's had a blessed day. Enjoy this video. I got other videos that you can watch. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, and we're gonna have a good time, man. You know, and we're gonna spread this information because it needs to be spread. All right, loved ones, have a good day.